journalist from Bristol. Mr. Gosling, welcome to Press TV. Nice seeing you again. Now, Mr. Gosling, the report coming in, 66% of people in Gaza suffer from cholera, chronic diarrhea and intestinal diseases. Why? Because they don't have drinkable water. Desalination plants are out of service, and also the sewage system. Why do you think Israel, obviously Hamas is not hiding in the water system, so why has the Israeli regime bombed these water system and the sewage system as well?
Well, it's not just bombed the system, it's also deliberately targeting vehicles which are removing human waste as well. So we've seen that over the last 48 hours too. This is obviously, again, a war crime. You have to look at these sorts of deprivation of basic foodstuffs, and particularly clean water. That is a war crime. Killing civilians is a war crime. Killing children is a war crime. Indiscriminate killing is a war crime. Disproportionate killing is a war crime, and this is all motivated by racism by the Israelis, and also, of course, they want to grab the land. They want to simply take that territory for their own. But with all these crimes that are going on, including this horrifying, I mean, look, if you think about it, cholera and diarrhea, the use of these has been happening for thousands of years, always by despotic individuals, and particularly nowadays, they are described as weapons of mass destruction. This is biological warfare going on here. And drinking safe water is, I would suggest, one of the ways where some of the neighbouring Arab countries could, through overflights and whatever means, be dropping in fresh water, dropping in clean water somehow into Gaza. This is a basic human need which everybody needs, and in a way I suppose you'd have to have volunteer pilots doing that, because the Israelis, and daring the Israelis to shoot these supplies of clean water down. So there are ways around it, I believe, by friendly neighbouring states, but the Israelis are quite clearly in the wrong here, using these the disease. 2/3 of Gazans now suffering from these diseases, which was predicted right from the start, and it's part of the Israeli war plan by the Israeli Defense Forces, by the military, on these civilians. So it will be interesting to see what happens in The Hague over the next few days as we hear the results of this war crimes trial. Certainly seems to me that Israel has got a lot to answer for this genocide.
Mr. Gosling, if I'm not mistaken, it was some aid was dropped by planes over from Jordan, but it was the French, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that if you know it. And also, from what I understood what you said, is it fair to say that the Israeli regime has done this to create more diseases, inevitably killing more Palestinians?
Well, absolutely, because I mean, this is what has been happening in wars ever since literally thousands of years BC. Sieges, which is what we've got in Gaza, were designed to kill the population within, not necessarily to bring about any kind of, should we say, courageous fighting military victory, but literally to destroy those people within. Obviously, these are the sorts of legal rules by which even animals have to be given water. Otherwise, people that deprive them of water are arrested, they are put in prison, certainly in this country. And so the Palestinian people are being treated worse than animals by the Israelis. And you know what? The most cynical thing about all of this is the way that the Israelis hope, along with their allies in Britain and the United States particularly, that they can use the control of the press, the bias in the press of the Zionists, in order to excuse this genocide. Now, Adolf Hitler used a similar tactic, didn't he? He had his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, attempting to excuse the excesses of the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, the Holocaust of the Gypsies, the Slavs, the Jews, etc. And one thing I can tell you is that they will not get away with this. This is a very underhand tactic, only used by despotic governments that are on their way out, to be frank.
Mr. Gosling, before we let you go, I want to, because it was a question from me as well. The UN humanitarian coordinator for Palestine, Jamie McGoldrick, he said that He says Israel has added insulin pens for children to the list of prohibited items that are not allowed into Gaza. Like insulin pens, what can you do with that? Can you make bombs with insulin pens?
This is not the only prohibited item. We have seen medical supplies stopped, and the whole idea that the Israelis can control what goes in and out of Gaza across the Rafah crossing and the non-Israeli parts of those borders is arrogance in the extreme. And what it does show you, and I would believe that this will transpire through the courts too, is that the Israelis have most definitely been wanting the civilians to die. And they've been helping the civilians die. They've been depriving the civilians of the basic things that they need for life. This is a totally inhumane government in Israel, and even many millions, actually, of the Israeli population have recognized this. Over the last few weeks, even more Israelis saying that we need to get rid of this far-right government, which is no longer actually a Zionist government in Israel. It's what you would call the Greater Israel Bloc. They're an expansionist government, again, exactly like the Nazis back in the 1930s, wanting to expand into the Sudetenland, wanting to expand into Czechoslovakia, and of course, ultimately expanding into to take over the occupy the whole of Europe, pretty much. So we need, I think, to begin drawing these parallels, because the Zionists and the Greater Israel Bloc particularly have been getting away with using the Holocaust as cover, and actually now even using the Bible as cover too, for far too long.
There you have it, Mr. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist from Bristol. Mr. Gosling, thank you for being with us, sir.